What's going on, everybody? Real quick, I just want to wish you guys a happy New Year's, and I want to thank everybody for who watches the episodes, supports the podcast, and all that. It truly goes a long way, and it really means a lot. Before we get this episode started, though, we'd like to thank our amazing sponsors. Castell's Canine is a one-stop shop for all of your dog needs with training, grooming, boarding, daycare, and more. Located on 35 Mobile Road in Percy, PA. Check out Castell's Canine and let them know the LOFT sent you. This episode is also brought to you by Hustle and Glow. Hustle and Glow is a luxury removal spray tan business in the heart of Port Richmond that services all affiliated surrounding areas. There are plenty of times people choose not to get a spray tan or have trouble getting spray tans because of the inconvenient travel, no one to watch kids, car troubles, etc. At Hustle and Glow, we offer a variety of services such as single spray tan session, group spray parties, and bridal party spray tan packages conveniently in the comfort of your own home. For more information or to see their work, you can check them out on Instagram or book them directly through the link below. This episode is also brought to you by Busy Meals Philadelphia. Busy Meals is a small at-home based business ran by a stay-at-home mom of 4. Cooking was always her passion, so she figured since she was at home with her kids already, she would turn this dream into a business. She specializes in homemade, prepared meals. They offer healthy meals, comfort food, keto, vegan, vegetarian, and breakfast options. They're located right in Northeast on Grant Academy. They're extremely flexible for pickup days, and if you want to reach out, just hit the link below. I tried their pasta egg rolls, they're amazing, and I highly suggest you guys check them out. This episode is also brought to you by Candle Sweet Candle. As you guys have seen previously on the set, I always have candles lying around. It helps with the mood and the atmosphere, etc. But they're a local business that hand pours 100% soy wax candles in Philadelphia, and it's all natural, biodegradable soy wax, lead and zinc-free cotton wicks, 0 added dyes, and it's all poured into recycled glass jars. They smell absolutely amazing, and they're all natural, so that's like even better. I highly recommend them. What's really special about these candles that they burn slower so it lasts longer, and like I said, they smell absolutely amazing. There's a ton of different flavors. There's fresh baked banana bread, white birch, and there's a million other flavors. Reach out in the link below and let them know the LOFT sent you, and yeah, grab yourself some candles. And once again, I want to thank all of our amazing sponsors for this episode and future episodes. Let's have a great 2022 and cue the intro.
You never know what someone's going through in their day to day.
It's amazing. You just come full circle. And
Like sleep on the pavement.
Yeah, man. Best part was the crowd.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Loft. I hope you guys had a good New Year, had a good Christmas. Today I have a very special episode with Sarah from the Savage Sisters. Hi, Sarah. What's going on?
Heyo.
So I wanted to have you on. I know you do a lot of outreach in Kensington, and I've been working with Meg at the Grace Project, and she was speaking highly of you, so I wanted to have you on and kind of talk a little bit about your story and where you came from and what you've been doing and what your goals are in terms of helping people who suffer from addiction and other things like that. So where's your story start?
Okay, so my name's Sarah Laurel from Savage Sisters, and born and raised in South Philly. The story of Savage, or like
A little bit about your story.
Okay. I had an addiction problem. I was working in corporate for a few years, and I got a prescription for something, and it kind of led me down a, shall I say, dark path, which ended in me being homeless in Kensington and on the run with felony warrants. And I say this openly to a lot of people, but I've been to treatment about 28 times. I've been to jail several times. I've been on the news.
For what you done? For the things you did?
Suspect wanted.
Really?
Suspect identified. Suspect apprehended.
Wow.
And then, I was in Kensington kind of just running by myself, getting high. I was addicted to heroin, crack, Xanax, cocaine. And I had gotten into a physical dispute, we'll say, with a couple of gentlemen from the neighborhood. And I was in a trap house that didn't have any screens or windows up on the second floor windows. And I went out the window. I wasn't discovered for about a day. It was the next day in the evening that somebody found me, and my leg bone was separated from my hip bone. My knee was broken. My tib was broken. My ankles were broken. My ribs, my shoulder was fractured. I had a broken nose. And so I was pretty jammed up and couldn't walk. I ended up being in the ICU and then having surgery on my leg and having to learn how to walk again.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of put me into my recovery journey.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't looking to get sober at the time.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. And it was a slow process. But a friend of mine who I had been cellies with reached out, and she was sober, and she asked if I wanted to live in this house and make it a recovery house. And I agreed. And that's how Savage Sisters started.
That's amazing. So what age did that happen? How old were you when that happened?
30.
Okay.
1.
Wow. So so that was your wake up call then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 35 now. I'll be 36 in May.
That's amazing. It's still it's still the beginning of your journey, which is amazing.
It was pretty dope.
You gotta give yourself a little bit of credit though, you know?
Yeah, it was wild. It was definitely not a good bottom.
Yeah. So the Savage just started from the people who lived in your house.
Yeah. I mean, basically, Des had reached out and asked if I wanted. It was a first floor room. That was the only reason I took it, and so I moved in. And the owner of the property wasn't in recovery. He was just a landlord, and he said, "Call it whatever you want, do whatever you want, just collect the rent and give it to me." So I picked the name Savage Sisters because when I was thrown out the window, I was wearing a dress that said Savage. The idea behind it is we chase our recovery ferociously, the same way we chase our drugs.
Right.
I built the rules and created a program. And Des actually, shortly after, relapsed and passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks. So we just kept going. It went from one house to 2 to 3. And then my brother and I... my brother bought a house and rented it to me and helped me start the actual 501c3 nonprofit.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is your brother in recovery as well?
No, he's my little brother too.
Really?
No, he had just seen me, and at the time, he was talking about buying a house for himself.
Okay.
And instead of moving into that house, I convinced him to let me rent it from him to make it a Savage Sisters house.
Wow.
And
that's a lot of convincing, right? That's intense.
Yeah, so that was, I guess now that was 3 years ago, and now we are about to open up our 6th house.
That's amazing.
And we do all the street-based outreach, and we do harm reduction education in the counties.
That's amazing.
Advocate for legislation and different things like that.
That's awesome. Wow. So starting that first house, how difficult was that to maintain and to grow? I mean, because I can only imagine the amount of work you must have put into it. As you see you smiling, I'm sure you know how much went into it. But what kind of work went into it? What did you do to grow it? And because I know you have a large community on Facebook who follow you guys and love you guys.
It was a learning process for me.
Yeah.
I probably didn't have any business doing it that early in recovery, but it was just kind of organic, and it happened. I will say the first year we learned from our mistakes.
For sure.
It was like,
you always do, right?
I always learn things the hard way. So it was kind of like feeling things out and seeing. And as I experienced different things with the different women that came in, the rule list got longer and longer.
Yeah, different things start happening. I gotta change it up a little bit. You know?
Yeah, I was like, actually, we can't do that. So it got into a different situation, and also as I progressed in my healing, I included that into the program. So that was what created the actual nonprofit and not just a recovery house.
Right.
So like today, Savage Sisters houses offer free dual diagnosis trauma therapy, kickboxing, and yoga weekly.
Wow.
For all the residents.
Wow.
And that came from me doing those things and seeing how it helped me heal. So
that's amazing.
It's not mandatory for the women or the men in our program to do it, but it's an option and we pay for it.
Right. So you have men and women in your program?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Savage Sisters is the women's house.
Okay.
And SIR is the men's program, and it stands for Savages in Recovery. SIR.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. So how many total residents do you have amongst the 6 houses you have?
30 something.
That's awesome. And they all do outreach as well? Or are they all just kind of in recovery?
So the first 90 days, they're not allowed to do outreach with us.
Okay.
Just because it's in Kensington.
And you want to prove that you got to have a little bit of a, rite of passage to that.
We want them to build a foundation.
For sure.
And get comfortable. And it can be re-traumatizing to be down there. Mm-hmm. Also, our outreach is a little different than others. We do have a syringe program, and we do it. There's a radical love thing there. We have no judgment. So sometimes people in early recovery, it's difficult for them to just come down and hand out those things.
Yeah, and be exposed to all of that stuff.
Yeah. So, but they are allowed to volunteer once they have 90 days. Most of our volunteers they're earthlings. They're not addicts at all. They're just community members who want to help.
Yeah, that's something I noticed too. Like I said, I do all the volunteer coordinating for Meg, and something I noticed that a lot of the volunteers, a lot of them are in recovery or have lost somebody in recovery, but a lot of them are just like, hey, listen, I saw what you guys are doing, I just want to help out. And that's like one of the greatest things in the world. I don't know if you can say that for yourself, but like having people just reach out of the goodness of their heart is like one of the best things in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, the community loves it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and people don't really know where to look for outreach and stuff like that. So for them to be able to find it, and you'd be surprised like who wants to give back and who actually wants to help out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that a lot of the programs you have set is because of what helped get you through like kickboxing and stuff like that. Where did that recovery process start, and how did you start that healing process?
It started slowly. Obviously, my 12-step fellowship was something that another woman kind of took me through, and that's its own thing, its own animal.
Yeah.
But there was I kind of got bullied into doing everything else.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to take any pain medication, and I had 70 staples in my leg, and so I was in excruciating pain. And someone suggested yoga and stretching, and my immediate, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Okay. My immediate response was, fuck that.
Yoga.
That's stupid. But as I kind of went through, I really didn't have a lot of other options that were not based on an opiate.
Right.
And then my mom bullied me into getting therapy by withholding cigarette money.
That's awesome.
So she kept saying that are you in therapy? Are you in therapy? And I was like, I don't need therapy. I'm fine, but like I'd been stabbed, I'd been assaulted, I'd been almost
you've been
murdered.
through like everything, like
I'd been to jail. So she was like, you're traumatized. And so I actually, it took me a few months to finally get a therapist. But it helped me. And so once I actually allowed myself the willingness to like be open to those different methods, I experienced them. Some of them I wasn't a huge fan of, but I'm glad I tried them. So I don't, and a lot of the different programs that we offer the girls and the guys, some of them I haven't ever even done. I just...
Oh, wow. You just have it out there for them?
Yeah, they reached out to us, like the people that do those, like holistic healing things.
Oh, that's
like,
cool. That's awesome.
Hey, we do this. We'd like to help the women or the men. And then it's up to the individuals that come into our homes to be autonomous in their healing process.
Okay.
And govern their own path.
Right.
But we give them as many resources as possible.
Yeah.
I'm still in trauma therapy. I met with my therapist yesterday.
Right, yeah.
In the past 4.5 years, I have buried very significant people in my life, very in like traumatic ways. So, and I think that comes with the territory. But I've been dealing with a lot, and I've also been kind of going over what took place when I was homeless in Kensington, and kind of facing that head on in a way that if I wasn't doing these things, I don't know that I would be able to heal.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's what I was kind of getting to is like, what were those steps taken? Because I know, like I said, you've lost a lot of people, but when you're helping somebody in recovery, how do you go about it? Like, do you do tough love, or are you like, hey, listen, like you can do it if you want? Like, I know there's a lot of different methods and like strategies to get somebody in recovery, but what do you think from your experience in the house that you kind of like emphasize in recovery?
When I'm trying to mentor someone?
Yeah. When you're trying to get somebody else.
I guess it depends on the individual, I would say. A lot of times my biggest thing is asking them how I can help, because
Okay.
some people need different methods.
Right.
Now, as far as the program itself, the rules are finite. Like, you have to follow the rules. If you want
Right.
to live. Savage Sisters is not for everyone.
Right.
Because we are I'm going to strongly encourage individuals to get on a healing path and to face the ugliness of the past and, be there for them, but we have to heal.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we don't have to,
Yeah.
but if we want to be happy, I know I had to do that.
Yeah.
As far as tough love goes, I don't know what that means really. There's two different Sarahs. There's the Sarah that deals with people who are in recovery and they want to recreate their lives. And then there's the Sarah that deals with people who do not want recovery, and I just love them through that journey. So it really is individually based. And I just try to allow that person to talk to me, and I listen to what they need.
That's very important. That's very, very important. I notice a lot of times people who are in recovery, they're like afraid to like open up to somebody. They're afraid to talk about it just because they're like shameful about it. And I feel like if people have the chance to open up more and talk more about it, then they're more than likely to heal. So you encourage the head-on facing trauma. You strongly encourage that.
I encourage them getting help from a professional about it, whether it's a holistic practitioner or a therapist. But I do encourage that you deal with it.
Right, for sure.
If you're getting sober,
Right.
But you have to ask people, what do they want?
Right.
Some people, it's okay for somebody to say, I just want a fucking sandwich. I need clean needles because I don't want to get HIV. Right? I need access to a therapist. I want to talk to a Reiki specialist.
Right.
So I try and uncover what their needs are, and then I try to meet their needs according to that. As the executive director, I would say there's different areas, but
Right.
yeah.
You mentioned you lost a lot of people. Was there ever a chance that you thought that you weren't going to make it out or make it through into any kind of recovery, or have your family ever said that to you that like kind of sparked that for you?
I never thought I would get sober. In fact, I didn't want to. I wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a period of time when I did not think that I would live, and I was fine with that. I had submitted to that, and I think my family had gotten to a space where they really weren't sure what was going to happen. I think that, when you're super skinny and you're missing and you're like on the run and you just keep overdosing, everybody in the family was just kind of like jaws clenched.
I guess just waiting for that call. I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. People ask me sometimes, like, why did I get sober? I don't know. I don't have like it was at the perfect storm.
Yeah. I mean, sober, let alone starting an entire nonprofit that's based around getting other people clean. That takes a lot of like strength to be able to do that. Just to not just worry about yourself getting clean, but worrying about other people as well. Because I know, like you said, I can only imagine the things you went through and you thinking that you're not even going to make it out. Then you end up, getting clean and then end up starting a recovery house at the same time. Like, do you think that's what ultimately helped you to get clean?
I think it helped me to stay sober because I had a purpose.
Right.
And I had a responsibility at that point that I hadn't had. And even though it was very small on like the scale of things, having the support and the connection of that community within the household and being an example, I had robbed myself of being an example for years. I was the example of what not to do.
Right.
And this time I was trying to like hold on with these other women and say like, hey, we got to go to a meeting today.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to get high, it was like I could get high, but like what would happen to these ladies?
Right. Yeah, that's actually amazing that you even say that, because I'm sure that was super helpful just to have like that community of people around you to like hold each other accountable. you know. That's really special, and I'm sure that definitely contributed to that greatly. Backtracking a little bit, what year or how old were you when your addiction started?
22, I
Okay.
guess. It was opiates. It was pills.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't drink crazy,
Yeah.
but the Percocet started with a prescription. I think I was 22 years old, maybe 23.
Okay.
And then 31 when I got sober, and I don't know. It wasn't.
Around that 22, 23 age, right? You said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure I could get my medical records.
No, you don't have to go that in depth. I just
Hold on. No, I'm kidding.
I just like to have a general gauge of just like how long you've been in that phase of your life, you know, because it is important, because it's crazy. Like, drugs do not discriminate. Like, from seeing other people and observing other people's families and lives, it's like it can take you your first time, or it could take you 10, 15 years. Like, it never discriminates and has a time period, you know. So my uncle's in recovery, so that's the reason why I haven't got involved in all of this. And I learned that he started when he was like 17, 18, and I'm like, it might have been younger, but that's from what I remember. And I was like, geez, like it's just crazy how young that these people are starting to use, and these kids. And even just being out in Kensington, I remember like my first time I was like petrified. Like, Kensington is like no joke. And I took notice, and I was like, these people are like normal ass looking people. They're not like you. They don't look like, you know what I'm saying? There's not like a specific look to a quote unquote like drug addict. Like, it's like it kind of can be anyone, you know?
Yeah. I don't count my teenage stuff because it was still manageable.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I count once it came to opiates, it was a wrap for me.
Right.
So I know a lot of people will say like, oh, I started drinking and doing drugs when I was this age. I mean, if you want to talk about the first time I smoked weed, I think I was like 8.
That doesn't.
Or 9.
That's really.
I was from Philly, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you're just like, yeah.
I was like, all right, we're gonna try this shit. No, but it's not like I continued to smoke. It was terrible. It was out of toilet paper. It burned my mouth, and I never did it again.
So what was your upbringing like then? If you're smoking that young, like what was that like?
It was nothing like that. We were so strict. My dad's
Really?
Middle Eastern. My mom's Irish Catholic. There was so much religion. It was so strict. We had to get straight A's. But both my parents worked really hard. We were poor growing up, and so when you have a 2-parent household where they're working a lot, like 10, 15 hours a day, you know, kids are gonna sometimes get into some shit.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's South Philly, so like all I gotta do is walk to the corner.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of it. Like I wasn't like a cool kid hanging on the corner. It was just like I had a friend. She found weed from her dad.
And you just smoked it out of a water bottle or some shit. Like, yeah,
stupid. There was I didn't have a problem. When I was in high school, I drank, I smoked pot, I did all that shit. But like, I didn't have the problem.
You didn't consider yourself. Okay. So at what age did it start to really pick up? Because you mentioned 22 was like, okay.
25 or 6.
Okay. That's when it really started to affect your life.
Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 years that I once I did heroin, I think I snorted it for like 3 months, and then I immediately started injecting. And once I will never forget the first time that I injected heroin, because it's what I chased for years. It was, there was a song playing, and I'll never forget the song, and it was on repeat for some reason on my Bluetooth speaker, and I fell back on the bed, and I was there for hours, and I just felt like I was safe in my mother's womb, and nothing could hurt me or touch me, and the house could burn down around me, and I would be safe. And I just remember this slow grin coming across my face, like I was completely euphoric. And that moment for me did not last. It was short-lived and then sought after wildly for years.
So you had that one feeling the first time, and you've been chasing that feeling every single time after that?
I did get high, okay? Don't get it fucked up, okay? I was having a good time for a minute, you know? The drugs got me high for a long time.
For sure.
And then, you know, I was like, maybe I should just like shoot coke and dope at the same time. And then that's a whole different feeling.
Wow.
And there's a reason that your body's not supposed to feel like that every minute of every day.
Right.
And then I did the Xannies with it, and then I was smoking crack, and I was always, you know, so judgmental of that. And then I did it, and I was like, this is the tips,
You kind of get it.
this is what I need in my life.
Yeah.
It was very difficult at that point because of the amount of drugs that I was doing. It was an astronomical amount of drugs, and I had tricked myself into believing, or I had tricked myself and my brain and my body into thinking that that was normalcy. Mm-hmm. And so I sought it out, and it got to the point at the end, that last summer, the drugs weren't working. I was in pain constantly, and I don't mean physical. Obviously, you could have shot me in the leg, and I wouldn't have felt it at that point. Yeah. I would have been like, my leg. What happened?
Yeah.
But the excruciating, like, self-hatred and self-loathing and guilt and shame and rage, the inward rage that I felt.
Is that when you were high, or you weren't?
Doesn't matter.
I always had it.
It had it. And that's why I went to so many treatments, because I would leave within like 2 to 3 days, because the moment that there were drugs out of my system, I could feel it and I could see it, and it was palpable, and I could touch it and I could taste it. Wow. And I hated myself, and I hated my past, and I hated my trauma. Wow. And so I kept getting high because it was the only time I could deal with it.
Wow. So drugs kind of numb the pain and everything you went through? Yeah. But did they numb the pain that you went through when you, like, before you got high, or is it the things you've done while you were high? Like, is that what you were trying to numb? Like, what were you trying to...
It just felt good in the beginning. You know? I just liked the way it made me feel. Right. I don't think that I was, like, super traumatized when I started it. Right. I didn't understand it. And by the time I understood it, it was too fucking late. Okay. And I was hooked. Then I went from, like, enjoying the feeling to being chemically dependent. Okay. And as the chemical dependency increased, the things that I was willing to let go of to get more, that list. That's where the stealing comes in. That's where all that type of stuff comes in, right? Because I'm sure it puts your body in some kind of survival mode and dependency, like you said. So what made you stay clean then? If that was something you were chasing and addicted to, what was that? What made you stay clean, and what made you get clean ultimately? The wheelchair. Okay. Kept my body still. I'm an impulsive creature. Okay. By nature. Yeah. So if I want it, I'll take it. I need it. I have to have it. Right. But the wheelchair humbled me a bit, to the degree of, like... when you hurt your leg? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I had to learn to walk again. So it wasn't like I could just run to Kensington. Oh, wow. Yeah, you really didn't have a choice. So the universe was like, sit still, bitch. Right. Just sit the fuck down. Yeah. Okay? And that was the physical aspect of it. And then there was this slow connection that I had to other women and men who were experiencing what I had experienced. Right. And then there was, it was the perfect storm. My family coming back into my life. I felt very disconnected, and because of the wheelchair and the need for me to be surrounded by people, I started connecting with individuals, and then I had this purpose to do this house. And then I had this this whole little storm that kind of developed Savage Sisters and sobriety and healing, and so it wasn't one thing. Yeah, so everything kind of came together at one time, I guess, for you. Yeah, which is okay. So you mentioned you lost a lot of people. What was that? How did that affect you in your life? And what age did you lose these people? Because I know it happens to everyone at different times. And I know that it changes someone. Like, it changes a person, especially when it's something like addiction, where that is something that is not necessarily like cancer, where it's it ultimately happens, where addiction can kind of just come out of nowhere and build up over time. What age did you lose somebody in your life that was really significant, and how did that affect you and change you? So, Des my celly. She was one of my best friends. Des and Claudia and I lived in the first Savage house.
Okay.
Des died in 2018.
Oh wow. I'm
and
sorry for
then-
your loss, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pete was my partner, and he
Okay.
died in my arms in 2019 of an overdose. And then in 2020, Claudia died of an overdose.
Oh my God.
And then this year, my cousin committed suicide.
Jesus.
And so, how did I deal with it each time?
Yeah,
With Desiree, I was devastated. It was the first close person that I had lost to the disease in that way.
Yeah.
And I just kind of hunkered down. When Pete died, I completely isolated. I picked up for a weekend.
Oh wow.
So my new sober date is May 5th, 2019.
Okay.
When Claudia died, obviously I've been sober since then, but when
Yeah.
Claudia died, I did her funeral, and I got through it. I'm still processing my cousin dying because we were very close, and she died of an overdose, but it was intentional. She wasn't an addict. It was a Tylenol overdose.
Wow.
That was this year, and it was in September. How do I process grief? I don't.
Really?
It processes me. I have a therapist, and a lot of times I will just... I work really, really hard. I work 70, 80-hour weeks sometimes, so I'm very, very busy.
Yeah, I'm very, very blessed you made time to come out here and have a conversation with me, because I know you were super busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes it's harder than others. Sometimes I will reach out to my team and say, I need 24 hours of just crying. Christmas Eve, I drove to the river and I cried.
Yeah.
For the beautiful young people that we don't have their energy anymore. And I love all of them dearly. But it's okay. This is what happens. I'm just like, at this moment, I'm trying to process staying focused and having my purpose-driven life continue and honoring them by doing the right thing. When somebody dies, if I relapse and pick up, it's now this self-centered thing that I do where everybody's concerned about me rather than grieving, and I don't want to do that to the people that I love. So I did it once, and that was a mistake. And I hope that I won't do it again, but who knows? But for me, it's different every time. Sometimes it's crying, sometimes it's screaming, sometimes it's hitting a punching bag, writing, and sometimes it's just feedling up in the bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or hyper-focusing on work. I don't...
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Right. Yeah. It's different every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because you have to grieve a little bit, and keeping yourself busy is always good, but it's always going to come out at some point. And whether it's a day or a week or however long, it's like it's very important to grieve, and it's also very important to honor those people, like you said perfectly, through the action, through what you do. You know, it's just to keep pushing, to keep going, and to understand that. I've told this to Allie and Dylan's mom specifically. I told them that because they question, especially specifically Dylan's mom, questioned like why this happened, and she felt like it was like her fault or something she did. And I'm like, listen, like it's not. I said Dylan wouldn't have been that great guy that he was if it wasn't for you, and those actions that you instilled in him are gonna live on, and they live on through how you respond, and then coming out and starting Dylan's Hope Dealers, and through coming out to Kensington and like doing that outreach. It's like that, like that's the Dylan that we all know and love because of like your actions, and you carry that out, all that out in the same way you do for Des and the rest of the people that you've lost in your life. It's like it's through those actions. That's the hardest part, I feel like, is when you do lose somebody, you just want to quit and drop everything. But like but carrying on your purpose is honoring them inadvertently, you know.
Yeah.
And taking those drives out to the river, you know, that's huge, especially in the holidays. Like, I can only imagine, you know, because like my biggest loss was my grandma, and like that like completely destroyed me as a person. Like, and that was I was 16 at the time. I was so long ago. Like, but that completely destroyed me as a person, just because I felt like she was the first person close to me that, you know, I lost, and I questioned why it happened. And she was older, I mean, through cancer, but it happened within a span of like 2-3 months. You know, it was very fast acting, but that's like something that changed me. And like, well, I used to go to the river too, which is crazy. And my parents bought a house on the river, like right where I would go and think about my grandma and like, and grieve about it, you know? So I feel like everything kind of happens for a reason, but the shitty things that do happen necessarily make you question it, which is fine. But I ultimately believe everything has a purpose, and everyone has a purpose, you know? And that's good that you found yours through your recovery.
Yeah, I and this may sound, I don't know if you want to cut this out of it, but I think as an individual, you know, I'll be 36 this year. I have seen so much darkness, and how each human being that I know encompasses good and bad. And I've seen human nature at its worst, and I've seen human nature at its best. And I've seen tragedy and death and trauma at such close proximity that I do not look for the meaning in it anymore. So I know a lot of people, I think that this comes from being in those kinds of experiences and traumas and tragic deaths. I've had so much of it in such a quick span that I've noticed that others will come to me and be like, there's a purpose, here's what it is. And I'm like, there is no purpose. They served their purpose, and they are gone because they're gone. I don't need to create a reason
meaning.
and a meaning between that. That's where the insanity came for me when I was trying to figure out why.
Drive yourself insane.
I have to accept it and let it go, and I have to remember that our relationship now is based on memories. And there's a lot of people that have relationships based on memories, whether they're dead or alive.
Right.
If I sit there, I'll spiral, like, especially with my cousin who committed suicide. What could I have done?
Yeah.
Nothing. I could have done nothing, because she self-initiated that act. She wanted that. And I respect and love her enough to not critique her judgment call.
Make peace with that.
I have to. I don't have a choice.
That's an amazing take on that, actually, because that's something I've struggled with when people would ask me, like, does everything happen for a reason? Why this happened to me? And it's like, you don't really know what to say to them. You know, you try to find a meaning in something, and it's like, you may ultimately never find it. Like you said, it may drive you crazy. And people who have lost a lot of people may be looking for that reason or that answer for their whole lives. But I think that's why you've been able to help so many people, is because you're very like, listen, like, you come on, you're very like you've seen a lot. So you kind of know how to take it, how to handle it, and how to, you know, communicate that, I guess I can say. Because I never heard someone have it as a take like that before. Like, they serve their purpose, and now that relationship is based off of memories, you know?
I don't know how else. I think probably because I spent a lot of time thinking about it, until the point where I went to where water meets the earth, and that's where the most pure energy is. And I sat with it, and I thought, it is finished. It's done. My relationship with this person, their energy on this earth with me, that moment is done, and I have to accept it and move on, and it can still be joyful. But I'm not the fucking Lord. I can't tell people. I don't. When people come to me for answers, I'm like, I don't.
You don't know. Yeah.
What do you want from me?
I guess the answer really is just to like, it's a relationship that's now based on memories, and you can honor them through your actions. You know, how you move forward. Yeah. So you mentioned that you have two parents who are very hard on you and strict. Did they have any way of getting you, like, helping you recover? Like, what was how were they come into the picture? Like, how were they a part of your life when you were in addiction and like early recovery?
So my dad, not at all. He completely disowned me. He doesn't want to speak to me. He's not proud of me. Like, as a woman, with his background, like, the things that I've done, unforgivable. And that's fine. It's been that way for years. My mother, on the other hand, is the reason that I am alive.
Shout out to your mom.
She came to trap houses. She knew all the dope dealers in Kensington. She would take me to treatment. She would visit me in jail. She would get the attorneys. She would show up in court.
Wow.
She took care of my kids. Like, she did everything. And then she gave me the space to heal. And, like, it's crazy because, like, growing up, like, I was terrified of my mom. I didn't want, because I didn't want to tell her the bad things that I did. And, it was a very different dynamic. And then we had gotten to this space where, like, I was this, like, raging heroin addict, and I would be hanging out with my mom in a hotel waiting to get into a treatment center, and I'd be shooting up in front of her. And she would just be there with Narcan hoping I didn't overdose. Wow. And then I would come to, and, like, we would have this, like, normally I would be afraid to even talk to her about a boyfriend, and I'm telling her all this crazy stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I did this burglary, and she's like, and we were like, she was like my only friend.
Yeah.
And she didn't judge me, and she didn't yell at me, and she didn't shame me, and she would hug me, and she would laugh with me at things that were preposterous, that, like, I would laugh with a friend, like a homie. Like, we would laugh about shit. I'd be, like, in jail, like laughing with Des. I would laugh like that with my mom, you know, and still to this day it's like that. And she's kind of like an sideways AA sponsor for me, because, like, if I can't hit my sponsor up, I call my mom, and, like, she knows when to be mom, you know, and she's still very staunchly Catholic, and she knows when to be, this has nothing to do with that. And she'll say things instead of, like, pray to Jesus, she'll say the universe, because she knows, you know what I mean? She's very flexible with me. And I don't know why. I don't know how I got that blessed. But when I did my amends with her, I had said, like, why did you do how, you know? And she's like, I thought I was, you know, she buried her brother from a heroin overdose, and she said, I thought I was going to lose you. I thought you were going to die. And I had prayed so often and so hard for you that every time you would call me, that was the only time that you would reach out to me, was when you needed help, and that was the only time you'd let me around your space. So I just wanted to spend as much time with you on this earth as I could.
Wow, that's deep.
So she saved my life.
Shout out to your mom, man. That's deep, because I don't know many people that would be there that much and so understanding, and so, like, just, like, I feel like she just understood, you know. Do you think that came from her brother passing away? I mean,
I think it was a process. I think it was a learning curve for her. She never gave up on me. Now, granted, when I got sober, when I was in the wheelchair, she wouldn't let me come home, you know. She set boundaries, but even in setting those boundaries, she would talk to me on the phone, and I could call my mom. I could literally call my very Catholic spiritual mother and be like, fuck these bitches, I hate it here. And she would be like, yeah, fuck them, but don't get high. And I'm like, okay. You know,
that's actually hilarious.
It was like, and I still call her all the time, you know. I think it was a process for her of listening. She taught me how to listen. That's where this radical love through connection, like our mission with Savage Sisters, isn't about, I'm not getting you sober. That's your work.
Right.
That's your work.
Right.
I'm here to love you no matter where you are in your journey.
Right.
And that's what my mom taught me. And that's what my mom essentially taught my brothers and sisters when they saw what she did with me. And that's how Adam came along, and he does the work with us now. He helped me found the nonprofit. But my mom will forever be the most firm foundation in my life. So.
Shout out to your mom. So you think just her listening and understanding was huge for your recovery, and just like letting you do these things in your life and then regretting doing those things and feeling like dumb for doing those things. Like I'm sure it was that, like, a part of how, like, what helped you get clean, I guess. Because I feel like a lot of times, like, letting somebody, like, I even thought about this too, like, in terms of, like, how to treat somebody when they're in recovery or trying to come back from it. It's like, you can't be, like, too hard on them. You can't super exclude them. You just have to give them that option to be there, and then let them know, like, that if they're not there, life will still go on without them. You know, I feel like making them feel that, like, oh shit, like, you know, oh, they don't need me anymore. Like, I should be there, you know, because it's like, you want what you can't have, essentially, you know. And I'm sure, like, your mom listening and just, like, understanding what you go through was huge for you.
Yeah. I think she wasn't, like, letting me rob her blind and, like,
she didn't seem like she was stupid. Yeah,
she's still a gangster. Like, she was still like, you're not, you better tighten the fuck up. But and people misconstrue that sometimes, and like, she co-signed your bullshit. She was codependent on each other,
Right.
and I'm like, no, the fuck, she wasn't.
Yeah.
She set boundaries with me and she kept them, but she still loved and listened to me. And I'm very much, I think like interventions are stupid as fuck, because it's like, let's corner this individual and tell them you have to get sober, and if you don't, we're going to disconnect from you. And once we disconnect from you, then you'll feel pain. Bitch, they're already in pain.
Yeah.
Like, they're already in, like, you think they're not in pain right now?
Yeah.
You are allowed to set healthy boundaries and say, no, you can't come over and rob me blind without completely disconnecting.
Facts.
Yeah. So I think that my mom, for whatever reason, showed me what that looked like, and that just is love. However I can give you love. It can be listening.
Right.
It can be showing up. It can be a sandwich. It can be a safe home to stay in. It can be a hug.
Yeah.
It can be a bag of fucking syringes.
Yeah, true. So, you mentioned you have children.
Yes.
How many children? What are their names? How old?
My son is 15. His name is Dylan. And my daughter is 9. Her name is Angelina.
Okay. So you're still using, I'm guessing, when you had them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you never really mentioned that until like a little later on. So like, I'm curious, what, like, how did explain? Like,
So, I had my son when I was 19.
Yeah.
Got pregnant when I was 19, I should say. And by the time I think he was 4 or 5, he went to live with his dad. We have different dads.
Okay.
My daughter, I had her, and I kind of like, I'm not going to lie, like, I did get high while I was pregnant, but I didn't know I was pregnant for a long time.
Okay.
And then I had her, and I wasn't doing heroin yet. It was right after she was born that I went to heroin, because I hadn't done the pills. I was like, I don't even know what I was doing. Yeah, I know.
Beat out of water bottles and shit.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I like. Honestly, I was like full of shit the whole time, but like I didn't know how to handle it. And then once I got onto the heroin, I moved in with my mom, and I got like so many siblings, so they helped babysit her.
Okay, how many siblings do you have?
There's 10 of us.
Damn.
But then, like, with stepbrothers and everything, there's like 14 of us.
Big family.
So gross. Like, I'm kidding. I love them all
That's
so much.
intense.
Yeah, we're super close too.
Wow.
Like, my sister's the outreach coordinator. My brother's director of operations. My other sister does the mural arts in the house.
Oh, hell yeah. So you got your built-in board of direct.
Yeah.
You have your built-in board.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
2 of my brothers do the maintenance on the houses. Like,
Dude, you got a perfect setup going on.
right. Savage.
Yeah.
So, so my... Eventually, and like, if you had asked me before, I would have been like, I was there all the time with my kid. I wasn't. Like, I would literally, I just ghosted, because I knew my mom was going to take care of her. My sister Mac, my sister Mac is younger than me, and she lived in the house at the time with my mom. I think she was in high school. So she would take care of the baby, like when you grow up in a big family like that, like the kids raise each other. Like, don't get it twisted. The parents are working.
Yeah.
So like all the kids in the family were just used to taking care of kids, because there's a buttload of kids in the house.
Yeah.
So I was just like, it was kind of good for me at the time, because I was like, here's my kid.
Yeah, you can kind of just push them there.
And she never suffered from lack of love or attention, and neither did my son. So when you have that large community, I would be gone, and then I would like pop back up, and it wasn't until the end that I was like officially gone. And that last year or two with my mom's husband Brian, who is an incredible man. They've been married for about 15 years now. He basically took care of her, took her to her first day of kindergarten, because I couldn't show up. I think I might have been in jail at that point, but like, he took care of her, and she's obsessed with him. Gramps is the light of her life, and Granny, my mom, it was interesting. It was such an interesting dynamic when I got sober 4 years ago, and started going to my mom's and seeing the way that my child interacted with my mom in a sober aspect of it. And it was beautiful. And she lives with me now. My son moved in with me last year.
It's amazing.
And then she moved in with last year because I finally moved out of Kensington.
Yeah.
And my son actually went back to live with my mom because he didn't want to live. Well, obviously, he wanted to stay. My mom lives in Radnor, so it's a completely different energy.
Very, yeah.
So my son was like, I don't want to live in a poor neighborhood with you, Mom. I'm going to live with Granny, but my daughter stays with me. My kid, she don't care. She's 9. You know, when you're a sophomore in high school, it's a different
A little
vibe.
different, yeah.
But I'm very, very close with my son. I'm very open with my son. He's too old to lie to.
Yeah.
I talk to him openly about everything. He knows the work that I do. He knows the history that I have, and I love him dearly, and he loves me. Angelina came to the house today and helped us paint. Like,
that's amazing.
That girl, she's out there. Like, she don't care.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to have that relationship with her, but the only reason it's possible is because of Brian and my mom, Gramps and Granny, taking care of him.
Yeah, for sure.
For as long as they did.
For sure. Did that affect you at all? Like, knowing you were out in Kensington and you were out with you were dealing with your addiction, like that you not being there, did that ever affect you and bother you?
I guess not enough to make me stop. That's a horrible truth that I think a lot of women in recovery suffer with because they feel shameful about it.
Yeah.
But to tell you the truth, I knew she was loved. I knew she was safe.
You knew she was taken care of, yeah.
And I loved her, but I hated myself more.
Right.
So, and I was addicted. So.
Right. So the drugs were a way for you not to hate yourself as much, right?
Yeah. I just, and it don't, there's if you look, you wouldn't even be able to find the times when I was missing because every time I went there, I was taking selfies with me and the kid because I had to make it look right.
Yeah. You had to, yeah.
But I was not there and I was not present. And I don't think that, I have no idea. I was on so many drugs that, like, I don't think I could process what it feels like to miss somebody.
Wow.
Or love somebody. I was too self-centered at the time.
Really?
And then when I got sober, it was like something that I fought and clawed for. I wanted my babies back.
Right. Yeah.
Just like,
yeah,
so bad.
So when you got sober, that's when you kind of realized everything you were missing out on, and just like the way you were, the way your life was going. That's when you kind of realized, right?
Yeah, when I got sober, and still when I was even in the ICU, I remember my kids coming, and I remember seeing them, and just my heart swelled, and I was enamored by their beauty and their ability to forgive. It is one of the most basic human emotions that children give freely, and thank God for that. So
yeah, I noticed that. That's a very beautiful thing, that they were understanding, or at least were able to forgive you because like you're their mommy, and it's like now they should be super proud of you because of their love and their forgiveness. You were able to now turn something that was negative into something that's very positive, and you're able to save lives and help these people. I would credit, I'm sure you can speak for yourself, but I mean, it sounds like you had a very good network, a family around you and support system around you, and it's one of the contributors of why you are Sarah at the Savage Sisters now. And it's also too, don't give yourself credit too. Because the things I can only imagine, and that's one of the things that I always try to have conversations like this and have people like you on, because I've never been in recovery. That's something I can never personally say I have been in, but I have somebody in my family who is in recovery, so I try to understand and cope and just listen to them and understand them as much as possible, and because I can only imagine what the drug does to you and what the drugs do to you, But it's amazing that you're able to just turn your life into something beautiful and great. And shout out to your family too. And what is something you learned out of becoming clean? Like, what's something you can look back on and say that you learned this, or that's something that like defined your addiction, like in terms of like what you learned from it?
What did I learn from my addiction? So much, my Jesus.
Right. Like, is there anything that stands out to you specifically?
I don't want to get on some like super existential thing, but I think that everybody is full of shit.
Okay. Yeah.
And everybody goes through stuff. I think that, being in different circles when you're using and seeing the human capable of harm of others and what we're like at our most animalistic core behavior, humans are capable of anything.
Right.
And I think that most people don't see that. I think that most normal people and people that aren't addicts, I call them earthlings. Because
Yeah, I noticed you mentioned that term. You dropped that term earlier.
I think earthlings that don't experience an enormous amount of trauma, whatever it is, I think that my addiction years exposed me to so much that there is a force field around me now as a sober human being that, if you come up to me and it's like this non-judgmental space that I can be in, you could confess the nastiest, dirtiest, grossest, most horrific thing that you did, and I'd be like, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I that's fine. We'll get through this, and that has changed me as a human, whereas before I was a judgmental asshole, and I was like, look at her, she's stupid, he's dumb.
Yeah.
What did he do? He cheated. Oh my God, who could cheat?
Yeah.
And he stole and he's in prison and she did that, and he's looking at her, and I'm still judgmental, don't get it twisted, okay? But like my judgment was on fleek before.
Yeah, it was super
because I hadn't been through shit.
Right.
And I didn't understand the human condition.
Right.
And I didn't understand that people do a lot of things out of pain. And that's what binds us. Joy does not bind us. I am bound to other humans by a reckoning of the soul of pain. I can look at you and see that you've suffered, and I'm going to bond with you over that pain. And then we can laugh our asses off, but pain fucking binds us.
Yeah.
And that changed me. Now, that's what addiction showed me. When I got sober, I use it. That's how I connect to other humans.
Your pain.
What fuels my fire? Connection to other humans. How do I connect to other humans? I listen to them. What's your experience? What have you been through? What do you need to get through?
Yeah.
Here's what I've been through.
Right.
And then I let them speak. Like that, I would never do that shit. 10 years ago, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't got something for me, I got nothing for you.
Right.
And addiction showed me like the ugly. And so now the very basic that like most people that are earthlings, they just think like this is normal. The most basic shit, like running water, electricity, my kids with me, the ability to pay my bills, that's fucking dope.
Yeah. It allows you to take things a little bit more, it allows you to not take things for granted.
Yeah.
And that's something that exactly what you just mentioned, like pain, like is what bonds people. Joy is maybe what maintains it, but that's why I like to go out there. That's why I like being involved with the Grace Project and everything like that, is just because like when you're out there, you see the realest of the real shit. Like you're out, like, you know what I mean? And I've been in bandos before. I went in with Meg one time to talk with someone that she knew in there, and it's like the way these people live is just not humane. And like you said, the most animalistic form is people out just trying to survive in Kensington. That's one of the most, realest and raw things that I've ever seen personally. And you see the pain that people go through. You see people trying to get into treatment, and just people who are in pain, and it hurts. It does hurt a lot. But just being able to make a difference for them in any way possible, like them having, like, we can go to Dunkin' Donuts right now and go to a drive-thru and get coffee and a donut, and that we're like, okay, that's just our normal 8 a.m., 9 a.m. But to them, it's like, oh shit, that's dinner. Like, that's crazy. It's like, I've been able to put a lot of things into perspective in my life just from being out there, and you can only imagine like the things you've learned. And that's a very beautiful thing you hit on with like, there's people bonding through pain. And I think that's so true, because how many of the best conversations you've ever had has been about something super happy? Like, not that many. They always started through something that you've went through in your life. And that's what, ultimately bonds people. But I wanted to thank you for coming on and just having this conversation. It meant a lot to me. It's a very special conversation to start off the new year. And I want to say too, like, just from hearing everything you've been through, I'm sure we haven't even scratched the surface, but I definitely would like to have you back on in the future, maybe with Meg or something like that. But I am proud of you. We just met, but I really am proud of you, and like just like the way you've been able to bounce back in a big way with, being able to start not even one recovery house, but 6 recovery houses, and everything you've been through with not even knowing you had kids until the middle of the podcast, and still seeing this, like what you came back from is amazing, because I know a lot of people don't come back from that, and they ultimately do hide in their shame, and because it is a real thing, and I'm the same way as you. I listen, I don't judge, I can't judge because I'm not perfect, and I get nothing out of judging you. I can't help you if I judge you, so just the fact that you were able to like take it for what it is, understand, like, listen, like, I fucked up. I did things in my life that I'm probably not proud of, but the way you were able to just come back and bounce back and have your kids back and have a great life and have your mom and your family still a part of your life, and start the Savage Sisters, man, because that's like the real deal. Like, when I was looking you guys up, like, I know about you guys from before, but like, it's just amazing what you've been able to do with your trauma and experiences, and I know that the people you lost in your life will be extremely proud of you. So I want to thank you for coming on and giving me your time. I know you're a very busy woman. She's working on new recovery houses, and she's really grinding and doing her thing. Where can they find you on social media?
So social media is Savage Sisters Recovery on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm Sarah Laurel. I think my Facebook profile is public. And then savagesisters.org is our website, and we'll be posting information if you guys ever want to do outreach or come out. Check us out.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll have all of that linked in the description. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. This is a great episode. And see you guys.